कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे हो।
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे हो।
जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे हो।
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे
गंगे
जय मां गंगे हो।
जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे जय मां गंगे
हो। हर हर गंगे हर हर गंगे
गंगे
हर हर गंगे
गंगे
हर हर गंगे हो।
हर हर हर
हर हर
गंगे हो। हर हर गंगे
गंगे माँ गंगे माँ
गंगे माँ
गंगे माँ गंगे माँ
गंगे माँ हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ हे माँ हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
हे माँ
बोले सर्वेश्वर भगवान की जय। गंगा मैया की जय। भारत माता की जय। धरती माता की जय। हर हर महादेव।
ओम जय गंगे माता मैया जय गंगे माता
जो नर तुमको ध्याता जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
चंद्र सी ज्योत तुम्हारी जल निर्मल आता।
मैया जल निर्मल आता शरण पड़े जो तेरे शरण पड़े जो तेरे सो नर तर जाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
एक ही बार जो तेरी शरणागति आता,
मुझे शरणागति आता, यम के त्रास मिटा कर, यम के कष्ट मिटा कर, परम गति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
मंगलकारिणी मैया तू है सुखदाता,
मैया तो है सुखदाता, तेरी गोद में आकर, तेरी शरण में आकर मन शांति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
आरती मात तुम्हारी जो जन नित गाता,
मैया प्रेम सहित गाता, दास वही है सज में, भक्त वही है सज में, मुक्ति को पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, ओम जय गंगे माता, मैया जय गंगे माता। जो नर तुमको जाता, जो नर मैया जी को जाता, मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता।
We're definitely not living for our jobs, and we're also not living for death. Because death isn't here in the present moment. And so to live for anything that isn't here in the present moment isn't what we're here for. So obviously we're not living for our jobs. I mean, you don't need me to go into that. We know that our jobs are not who we are. We know it's a role we play. If you find one that you enjoy, wonderful. You find one that is of benefit to the universe in some way, triply wonderful. But as I always say, sometimes, a lot of us when we think about our purpose or we think about our Dharma here, a lot of us mistake purpose and Dharma with our career. And so we literally think, oh, I should be living for my job because my job is my purpose or my job is my Dharma. Not always. Sometimes it is. I've met doctors who absolutely, being a doctor is their Dharma. You try to get them to meditate, they're like, I can't meditate, I only meditate when I do surgery. I'm more meditative doing surgery than sitting in a dark room. No problem. Wonderful. I've met people who are gardeners. Absolutely their Dharma. And you know it because they touch things and everything grows. I've met people who are artists or writers who clearly that's their Dharma. They're here with the purpose of conveying something to the world, giving a message to the world. Through music, through art, through writing. But these are people, it's very rare. Much rarer than you'd think. And the tragedy is that so many of us have this sense of, oh, my job or my career has to be my purpose, has to be my Dharma. No, it doesn't. In some cases, it may simply be what you need to do to put food on the table because that's your duty to your family. And so you don't want to start trying to figure out whether being the mailman or the gas station attendant or whatever you may be that feels kind of lowly and not so important, how could that be your purpose or dharma? Well, it isn't. But putting money on the table is your duty to your family. And you don't necessarily need a job that is what you live for in order to do it. Obviously, it should be tolerable. You don't want to be miserable in the job, as in the first question. But the issue really is, clearly we're not living for that. Clearly we're not living for that. We're doing the job. We'll come back to living for death in a moment, but staying on the aspect of our jobs for a moment. One of the things we emphasize and hear all the time is we're here to be a tool in God's hands. That is our dharma. That is our purpose, is to be a tool in God's hands. And sometimes that tool is something you can be paid to do. Most of the time it's not. And that's great. No problem at all. So your dharma may be, for example, to be the first father to send his daughter to school. Maybe that's your purpose. Because maybe in your village or your city, girls don't go to school. And so you get up every day and you are a gas station attendant or whatever you do to bring home the money so that your daughter doesn't have to go out begging or doing some other manual labor so that there's food in the house so that she can go to school. So you go to do this job. But the job itself isn't where you should be looking for the purpose or the dharma. You realize it's here. In many cases, our dharma is much more intricate than just something as specific as to be this or to be that. And it also changes through life. You've got a dharma to do something at one point and then at another time to do something else. I deeply believe that the universe doesn't necessarily want only one thing from each person. So we definitely don't live for our jobs, for sure. We absolutely live for our dharma, though, which, as I said, is to be a tool in God's hands. That's what we live for. But it could be on the way to work. Maybe on the way to work, I pass these poor people. I have money, I give them. I don't have money, but it troubles me. So I try to figure out, okay, what can I do for them exactly? Maybe I'm not rich, maybe I don't have the money to actually give them, but maybe I actually, in my office, in my job, come up with a plan, come up with a program. We get them off the street, we build a school for their kids, whatever it may be. And in that way, we start to understand what our dharma is, which isn't necessarily about a school, but it's about service. It's about being a tool in God's hands. You're on the way to the office, you have this feeling. Instead of pushing it out of your mind and saying, no, gotta just get to the office. I don't have the money. If God wanted me to help, he would have given me a fat wallet and lots of money and I would have had it to give them. But we realize, well, what do I have? I have creativity, I have compassion, I have initiative, I have tenacity, I have commitment, I have all these things, I have a lot of friends. And what do you know, in a few years, your entire community no longer has a homeless person. So there's an infinite number of ways that our own dharma is going to play out. Each of us is going to be a different tool in God's hands in different times, in different ways. But that's what we live for, because through that is where our awakening happens. This is what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when finally Arjuna says to him, well, all right, if doing good deeds gets me good karma, doing bad deeds gets me bad karma, they don't cancel each other out. I've got to keep coming back here until my karmic bank account is empty. Good account, bad account, either way. What's the way out? Right? I mean, even if I do only good things and I get only good karma, well, that's still a karmic bank account I've got to come back to clear. And if ultimately my goal is moksha, is liberation, what do I do? So I'm not going to do anything then. So Lord Krishna says, but you're still acting. Even you sit down, you do nothing, you're still acting. What do we do? And this is where he says, whatever you do, surrender it to me. Do it as a tool in my hands. Don't do it as an act by you, for you, whether for good karma, bad karma, selfish motives, selfless motives, whatever it may be. Don't do any of that, because all that's doing is filling your bank accounts. The good and the bad. Whatever you do, surrender it to me. Be a tool in my hands. And that is the only way to actually be free of accruing this karma that's keeping you stuck. So we live, so you said, what do we live for, the job or the death? Well, definitely not the job. We're going to come to the death in a moment. But what we're living for is that freedom, that awakening. How do we do it? By being a tool in God's hands. By surrendering to God. All of our expectations, all of our attachments, all of our desires. It does not mean, by the way, that we become lazy and complacent, indifferent, apathetic, any of those things. In fact, we become even more connected, more committed, because we understand, I'm not doing this for me. In terms of my bank account or my personal well-being or my personal family. This is truly a matter of my awakening. This is a matter of the purpose of my life. And so every minute matters. And then it becomes how we're doing what we do, not what we're doing. Who's the I doing it? So it's not about I have this job or this one or that one. I don't like this one. I want a better one. It becomes about the way to the office. It becomes after the office. It becomes the weekends. It becomes from your desk to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the... And every minute of the day, purpose, Dharma. And then death. Well, as I said, obviously we're definitely not living for death. However, we cannot live life unless we are deeply aware of death and deeply connected to death. Because otherwise we live in this illusion that we're invincible. We live in this illusion that death isn't going to come. We live in this illusion that it's all just about what I can acquire, accumulate during this life. And this is where holding death in our awareness is so important. Because when I know, it could be any minute, any moment, there's no guarantee. We live very differently. Very differently. Think back to the time that you lost a loved one, most recently, or the deepest one. When a deep, dear loved one passed away. Think back to that time for a moment. Or think back to the time that you or a loved one was diagnosed with a terminal illness, even if miraculously you lived, but you had a doctor say you're going to die. that change how you live? Like this, right? Instantaneously, no course required, no certificate required, no book required. Instantaneously. Suddenly, all of the nonsense no longer makes a difference. Suddenly, all of the little things that always bother us, they don't matter. Suddenly, all of those things, we let go. So all of the attachments that we have to how the world is going to be, the minute that death is in our face, they disappear. That job, that money, that this person being nice to me, that person being mean to me, this, all of that stuff, it's gone when death is in our face. And suddenly we know all that matters. And what matters? What matters when death is in our face? If you only had 1 day left to live, say you only had 1 hour left to live. If you knew you only had 1 hour left to live, what would you do with that hour? I'm sorry? What would you do?
Think about God, she said.
Think about God. Yeah, think about God, of course. Anybody would do anything else? You've got 1 hour to live. Ask forgiveness from all. Yes, absolutely. Anything else? Love. Right? So, love, God, connection to God, forgiveness for what we've done, so we become humble, aware that we've made mistakes, aware that being arrogant and full of ego and stubborn doesn't matter, that what matters is that connection. And there you have it. This is what matters in life. So we actually know it. And that's why holding death in our awareness is so important, even though we're not living for death. Because when I know I have 1 hour to live, I love, I get connected to God, and I let go of petty grudges, and I ask forgiveness of anything that anybody's holding against me. I'm humble. This is how we need to live. Don't wait till you've got 1 hour left to die. Tragically, most of that time you're unconscious, hooked up to machines and on all kinds of drugs that, just ease you out. Very few of us are given a gift of actually knowing, I've got 1 hour left, I'm conscious, I'm able to say what I want to say, I'm not all, doped up on morphine or something, I'm not in so much pain that I cannot even think. Most of us are not given 1 hour like that or a day like that. But we have every day like that. We have these hours like that. So let us live in such a way that when that last hour comes, we're not panicked. Oh my God, I'm on morphine. I can't love people. Oh my God, I'm on morphine. I can't say I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm on morphine. I can't connect to God. Do it now. Because you don't know when that last hour is going to come. So when we already know what's important, do it now. And that's the role that death plays in our life. So we don't live for it, but we live with it, with the awareness of it.